I've partnered up with my friends over at 90 Plus Sellers to show you how I'm going to spend my Valentine's Day with Paul by DIYing a wine caddy that also doubles as a cheese board. To measure everything out on the board, I just pulled what I wanted to put on it, which was 2 glasses of water, 2 wine glasses, and 1 bottle of wine that is empty because I know I would drop it and break it if it was full, but we're actually going to be utilizing 2 of those guys because we're going to stack them. I wanted to see if I already had wood pieces on hand that would work with this. I had a piece of wood that was almost big enough, but once I put everything out onto it, I saw how close the wine bottle was to the edge, and I wanted there to be a little extra space towards the front. I had a larger piece of wood on hand, so I measured that out to be 15 inches by 22 and a half. That is the measurements that worked for me, but you can do whichever works for your space. Now that I got the baseboard down to the perfect size, I can measure the shelving part that's going to hold the stemware. I grabbed the wine glass and put it onto the actual piece of wood that I was going to cut down to ensure it was wide enough. When that was cut down, I placed the wine glasses where I wanted them to hang and then kind of made a little guideline as to where the center of the stemware would be, and I used my level to make the crosses to connect the dots to drill through it with a 5/8 drill bit. After those holes were drilled, I went ahead and measured out the thickness of the stemware and made guideline markings to use my jigsaw to cut a straight line through to slide the stemware in. Now that that portion is cut out, we can go ahead and work on the actual rack itself. So you want to measure to make sure that you have enough room for the glass to be hanging and to stack 2 bottles. That was 12 inches for me. I cut down 8 12-inch dowels to start with. The 12-inch pieces are going to be the legs of the table, if you will. It's going to hold everything up. I placed my wine bottle in between the 2, measured out what size dowel I needed to make it wide enough to hold a wine bottle, which was 8 inches, and I cut down 3 of those per 1 wall. So you're going to need a total of 6. Bear with me because I am new to using power tools or building things in general with wood, so you're kind of going through the process as I learn. I clamped down my wood and added some wood glue and started hammering. It took so long. I got so frustrated. The nails bent. It wasn't going in straight. It was falling apart. So I said, I need to invest in a brad nailer. Let's try this again. So you're going to need 2 12-inch pieces as the walls of the wine rack and then 3 8-inch pieces for the middle support and the actual rack portion. And then you're just going to brad nail those all together, which was really fun actually. As I went along placing the smaller dowels in between those 2 12-inch pieces, I made sure that they were not only even on each side, but when I nailed them in, that they were going in level. After I got one done, I actually laid it back down onto a corner and then laid my other pieces on top to create the second wall to make sure that they were exactly the same. I stacked those on top of each other once more to know how wide I needed the back pieces to be to separate these appropriately for the wine bottles. Those ended up being 3 inches each. I nailed those 2 pieces into one side of the wall and then flipped it around and connected it to the other side, and now we have a rack. To each rack, to make sure the wine fits snugly and it wouldn't fall out, I just added 2 8-inch pieces on top of the other 8-inch pieces, but pushed in a little more. This allows the wine bottle to rest without slipping through. Before staining or anything, I made sure to sand down all my wood. To finish up this shelf area, I grabbed the skinnier piece of wood in the rest of my dowels and then attached it with my brad nailer to each corner. I then laid the wine rack directly on its back on something super flat and secured it once again with the brad nailer. I put the stemware into the actual slots to make sure that I was spacing out the remaining 2 12-inch dowels before securing them in. And before staining this or putting it together, I did flip the board over and put a couple of extra 12-inch dowels running across the bottom to lift it up a bit so you can handle it easier by grabbing it instead of it being like flat to the surface. You won't be able to get your fingers underneath there to serve or move it around if you need to. I decided to stain the pieces a dark walnut because that's what goes with the furniture that is already in our house, but feel free to do whichever color you'd like. Just do it per the instructions on your can. In order to make sure that the wood was food safe, because you're not supposed to obviously cut into shellac or stain, I bought 2 pieces of walnut. That way I just needed to add some cutting board oil and didn't have to worry about the staining, and it was completely safe for the humans that were going to enjoy it. I cut down those 2 pieces to match the board that we already stained, and then I scooted the pieces to the front, added some glue, and clamped it down. For the remaining piece on the back, I just measured it out and cut a different piece of wood that I stained and shellacked because that part isn't going to have food on it. I secured it with my brad nailer, and then I went in with cutting board oil, which I got at Home Depot. It's only like $8, but in order to prime this wood, you need to put a coat on. Go with the grain of the wood with a clean cloth, let it dry for at least 20 minutes, and then add 2 more coats. So it should be like 3 to 4 coats of this oil. I shellacked the other pieces of wood that weren't going to have food on it, and then I secured that rack from the bottom of the board up into the actual dowels, and you're done. Now that we're done with the build, we're going to go ahead and build this cheese board around one of my favorite Pinot Noirs by 90 Plus Cellars. When I'm drinking Pinot Noir, I tend to do really creamy cheeses, so a goat cheese and a brie cheese, and then I put out my favorite fig crackers and then slices of a baguette. You want to complement that with light fruits and walnuts, maybe candied walnuts like you see here. I'm adding 2 different kinds of grapes and some strawberries, and then obviously your favorite kind of meat, which is salami and prosciutto for me. Like I said, cheese boards are always a personal preference as well, so definitely tailor it to your taste. Obviously, you know what your palate enjoys. And then that little area was going to be for water, but I thought flowers made it more Valentine's Day-esque. And there you have it, your own little wine caddy cheese board hosting party situation. This thing is the best. You can use this to host your girls for Valentine's Day or a get-together, but Paul and I are such homebodies, I thought it was the perfect Valentine's Day idea for us.
But you didn't even say Samuel. You went Samuel. I'm sorry, but I was a little harsh. Cheers, Jen.
I hope that you guys enjoyed this DIY wine caddy, and thank you so much to 90 Plus Cellars for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check out other inspiration that has to do with all things wine. 90 Plus Cellars has an incredible blog. I'm going to link it down below. And alongside that, I am also going to link down some of my personal favorite wines by 90 Plus.